Whose idea was this? This is a terrible idea. I gotta talk to my producers about this. Yo, what's going on, y'all? I'm Ryan Fila, and today I'm gonna be talking about a few travel tips that I've used to stay more productive while on the road. I know for me, productivity on the road, whether it's a short-term trip or whether it's a long-term lifestyle trip, is really important, but can get often pushed to the wayside because I get so focused on the travel itself, which is sometimes I honestly think is okay. But if you want to do this long term, it's very difficult to sustain if you can't lock in and be productive some amount of your time. So my first tip for you is self-awareness. You have to start here. You have to know what makes you tick, what distracts you before you can even apply the other tips. A lot of the other tips are layered on top of this idea. For example, like I said, you have to know what distracts you. Can you work on the side of the pool in your bikini or in your swim trunks like this while you're standing in the pool? I can't. I don't like to say I can't, but I do not prefer to do that. That is not my most productive place of work. I like to go to a cafe or a communal working space. I don't even like working from home when it's clean. If I'm sitting at the kitchen counter, I'm gonna get into the fridge probably 15 times an hour, which is not efficient. That is, except for at the time of this recording, because this thing is empty, unless I want to drink soy sauce or straight tomato sauce, or I do have something in here to snack on, some olives. Another question to ask here is what I started with. What type of travel are you on? Are you on a week family vacation? Or are you trying to do this long term and make this a lifestyle? Because those matter with how strict and how self-disciplined you are in making sure that you stay productive at least X amount of hours a week. Now, this first tip plays directly into the second one, and the second one is environment. I say self-awareness first because you have to understand yourself and what you prefer and where you can work and what your limitations are. But two is setting up that environment to then fit that self, to fit you. For example, I did a video on why I dismantle everything in an Airbnb when I first moved in. Gotta go. Another pig, you gotta go. This countertop space, this is all gone. What is that? Because I do typically at least 1 month stints in locations. So I come in the first day, I tear the whole place apart and I reorganize it to fit my lifestyle because this is now my home. It's like I just took a 1 month lease. I want it to feel like home. It's the same idea with being productive. You have to set up your environment. So if you like to go work at cafes, then wherever you're traveling to, figure out what cafes are near you. Do they have good Wi-Fi? Are they good workspaces? Go in and try them. For the first day, maybe you just go have a cup of tea or a cup of coffee or whatever at each cafe and feel the vibe out and see if that's a location that you would want to sit in for potentially 8 hours and work. Another good option here is group workspaces. If you want to pay a small premium, depending on where you're at, for a desk or a spot in this communal workspace where everybody's basically working remote and that helps you focus, that might be worth your money depending on your budget as well. My side note with this is be creative. I noticed in a lot of places there are workspaces that almost never get utilized. Even at university, at college, there were so many places on campus that you could study, that you could go to, that you could spend your time, and students just didn't take advantage of them. And I found that lays over into the quote unquote real world as well. If you're staying in a hotel, I can almost guarantee you there's a nice workspace that you can go to, set up shop, and you could be there for 8 to 10 hours and it's not gonna cost you anything. If you're in an Airbnb, if you're in an apartment complex, there's potentially an office room that's open 24/7 that you just need a key card or you need permission or something to get into to use, even in the lobby. Just look around before you go out and pay money to be in a location. Look at where you're at and be creative in where you're looking. For example, right now I'm in Lima, Peru, and upstairs, it's like the 18th floor or something, they have the gym, and right next to the gym they have one of those, I don't know what you call them, like community rooms where there's a couple tables, you can see outside, but it's almost always empty. And if it wasn't for COVID, because those are closed down, I would be up there probably every single day so I didn't spend as much money at cafes as I currently am. Now, number 3 is set up some type of schedule or routine. What this does is it sets an expectation for you, and it sets an expectation for everybody around you, whether that's family or friends or acquaintances or maybe people that you're working with. They know when you're available, they know when you're not available, you know when you're available for other things, and you know when you're not available for other things. This just helps create that expectation. But now that you've created that expectation, you have to try your best to stick to it. So if somebody's like, hey, you want to go do this? What this allows you to do is say, no, that's during my time of work. But the responsibility here is that you're like, no, that's my time of work, and that's that. Like, that's just the expectation. If you absolutely have to get this work done, that's my expectation. Now, if you're on a shorter trip, again, like I was talking about, and you don't want to miss that opportunity, if that's the only time you can go out and you can go zip lining through the mountains or whatever it is, then you can move your schedule and make that exception. But setting up that schedule, setting up that expectation is very important. What I've found in my experience is if I don't do that, then I end up scattered all over the place. And then I'm like, oh yeah, I can do that. I don't have to work now. And then I'm like, oh, I never got that work done. And then it kind of snowball effects, and I just don't get everything that I need to get done at the end of the day. And then the following day, I'm like, oh, I got to get this extra stuff done. But you know I'm not going to do that extra stuff because I'm also traveling. It's just not a good thing. Set that schedule and that expectation up. What I like to use for this is Google Calendars. I think Google Calendars is the GOAT. I think it's the best calendar system out there, at least that I have used. It's universal. You can use it on PC or Mac. It's got a great app on the phone. I have an iPhone, and the app on there works wonderful. It's color coordinated. It works great with Gmail and setting up events through your Gmail account. For example, like your plane tickets, when your plane tickets get sent to you, I have it so it's automatically synced with my calendar, and then it just automatically puts them into my calendar. I've tried others like Apple Calendar. Now, I haven't tried it recently, but I'm assuming it's like Maps, and Google is just a little bit better. But I don't know that as a fact. Whatever you find some type of calendar system. And I also use my modified bullet journal, just so you have some type of example. Those days weren't as good. Kind of skipped a couple days. This is what I'm talking about. Actually, I'm gonna show you so I can be transparent. There were a couple days here that I just got ahead of myself and didn't do anything, but instead of trying to go back and fix it and whatever, I just crossed it out. It's not that I didn't do anything at all, I just wasn't on top of my bullet journal game, and that's fine. That happens when you're traveling. You just gotta roll with the punches when you're on the road. And these, what I do here, I'll do a whole video where I break down my productivity process, but this is my to-do list, more or less. This is the stuff that I have to get done during the day. I've had this on an iPad, I've had this in paper. I just recently went back to paper because mostly my retinas, and I got tired of looking at a screen, but there'll be videos on both my iPad version and my paper version of this. Number 4 is shorten your goals. Now, a lot of us make some type of goals, whether they're New Year's resolutions or 5-year goals or 10-year goals or 1-month goals. But what I have found in traveling and doing it a lot, that the shorter my goals, the more focused I am on them, because there's almost a due date coming up. So if I have monthly goals, I've tried bi-monthly, that was my most recent, but I think I'm gonna change it to monthly because even every other month is like a little far out. The shorter that I make them, the more present they are. I put them in my bullet journal and I can reference them quickly. At the end of the month, okay, did I get those goals done or not? And that's my answer. Like, it's that easy. It's not this macro idea that I'm just pondering and looking at. Anything past a month or two, honestly, is just too unknown for me. So I like to shorten my goals and make them more present. Now, number 5 is kind of a 3-part thing, but they all intertwine together. And if I lose them, I'm off. And it's exercise, food, and learning. Exercise gives me a structure throughout my day. It makes me feel so much better. And when I feel better, I'm just more productive. And on top of that, my food feeds right into that. If I eat better, I'm more likely to exercise, which means I'm more likely to be productive. And learning is kind of the same way. I've just found those as almost fundamental building blocks for a continual growth process. Exercise, my diet or food, just eating more healthy, and the third one is learning. And these are so easy to let slide when you're traveling because you have the food to experience. Food across the globe is a huge cultural piece, and we often just want to try everything, but we want to try so much of everything that it becomes unhealthy. There are a lot of desserts here in Peru that look delicious, and if I give into my sweet tooth every single day, I'm gonna start feeling like crap, and I'm not gonna do as much, and I'm not gonna exercise. And once those go, I'm not gonna be reading, I'm not gonna be listening to books on tape, I'm not gonna be improving myself intellectually. And I think that's important to continue being productive in whatever your field is. You have to learn the nuances of your work or of your passion to continue growing. And if you let those things slide, you just won't be as productive and you'll stay in travel mode. I hope you found those 5 tips helpful. They definitely help me when I'm on the road. And let me back up and say I'm definitely not perfect. I readjust and realign constantly to try to stay on track. Last week, I even started to slide, as you saw on my scheduling, but I realigned, I reevaluated, and got back on course this week. So it's a process. If you're doing this long term, traveling and traveling for your life and your lifestyle are completely different things. Traveling and being a nomadic creative or nomadic worker, those are totally different, and you have to learn to balance the two, or you won't be able to do it long term. That's just the truth. So wherever you're at in this journey, understand if you're making mistakes, that's totally okay. Just remember to get back on track, realign yourself, and continue pushing forward. Like I said, you're traveling and a lot of things change. You got to be able to roll with the punches. But anyways, I'm Ryan Fila. I'm glad you're here. I appreciate you. If you got some value out of this video, I would appreciate if you hit the like button. That helps me out, obviously, with the algorithm and rada. I'll put a couple other videos up right here that I think you might find interesting and useful. But until next time, you try to live your dream, and I'll meet you there. Peace.